Hello, everybody, and welcome. Just so you know, we are recording today's session, and the recording will be available that I'll send to you later this week. Thank you all so much for coming today. I know we only have a couple minutes past 12 o'clock, so we're going to give people a few minutes to come in. I always like to do an icebreaker in the chat. So today's icebreaker is going to be, please tell us, what is the first concert you attended? I know that the news that NSYNC is going back on tour made me think of my first concerts and, just loving live music, and music is something that brings everyone together. So if you have a couple of minutes before we kind of officially get started and want to put down what your first concert was that you attended, and there's no shame. Mine would be Backstreet Boys. Awesome. I don't even know who that band, if that's a band, is. So if you want to share with us a little bit about that, you're welcome to come off mute. Three Dog Night, Stephen Wolf and Dave Mason. Very cool. Yeah, music, especially our first concerts. Oh, Chad, you came off mute. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, Depeche Mode. Come on, you've heard of that.
I've probably heard their music. I'm not the best.
Oh, I guarantee you most people have heard. I mean, you're right. You've heard their music. That's the best way to say it.
Yes. Yeah. Love that. Okay, great. I'm going to get started just sharing. I was just told that Zoom kind of updated a little bit of their policies. So you have to have a passcode to come in because apparently there was some Zoom bombing going on, which I was not aware of. So if you hear the doorbell, I apologize for that. But we are having people join us in, and thank you all for being here today. I think we're having a couple technical difficulties with our guest speaker, so we're going to allow her to join us back in. Before I get started, I'll give her about a couple more minutes. But I want to thank everyone for coming today. This is our third segment of Broadband Bites for Lunch. And so we're hoping that this segment's going to switch up a little bit about our kind of our forum a little bit. So at the end, we're going to have a question and answer segment from Nieves from Esperanza, really highlighting the work that they do working with Hispanic communities, Latino communities in terms of broadband access and deployment. So we're very excited to hear from her. And so it's a couple minutes after the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Okay, hope everyone can see this. Okay. All right. So again, thank you so much for joining us. This is our September segment of Broadband Bites for Lunch. I'm Stacy Baxter, Program Manager with Next Century Cities. So if you weren't here with us last week we talked about a lot about back to school was our topic. So we talked about our education, tech policies. I'm currently doing some research around the high costs of connectivity for students, particularly public school students. I have a background as a social worker and working in schools as a school therapist, which is kind of where all of my ideas for this research are coming along, is seeing the effects and the disparate effects that EdTech is having on students, particularly when we look at the homework gap, when we look at the fact that there's a huge reliance on technology in schools. And so last week we really talked about that and had Ilana Lowry, the director from Common Sense Media in Arizona, join us. And so if you are looking to hear about that segment, that is recorded and available for you if you'd like to view it. But this week and this month, we are talking about mainly we're going to be highlighting Hispanic Heritage Month and talking about broadband access in Hispanic and Latino communities. But I'm just going to start us off kind of ending out the quick review of the EdTech research that I've been doing. But the majority of today's segment, we're going to leave for Nieves, who was nice enough to join us today, who is the Senior Vice President of Development at Esperanza. So I'm going to quickly go through. First, I just wanted to highlight it is Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th. And so I just want to give us three kind of fun facts as we go along and talk about this work today. The observance of Hispanic Heritage Month started in 1968, which is only a week at that time, and expanded to a month-long celebration in 1988. It's starting in the middle of the month on September 15th and goes to October 15th to signify the anniversary of independence for Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. And September 18th and 19th, I believe, are Mexico and Chile anniversary for independence, which is why it kind of falls in the middle of the month. And then kind of relating back to the work that we do here in Broadband, a 2021 Statista survey talked about how 95% of adults in the United States who use the internet are Hispanic or are identify as the Hispanic population. So it's just something to keep in mind for us today. So quickly, I'm kind of going to go over and kind of finish up last month's segment talking about education and technology and the reliance on it and kind of the consequences that it has for public school students. So we know that there's a strong reliance on technology. We're using, especially during the pandemic, we use it for communication, educational tools, studying, homework time. So there's a lot of reliance on technology. We know that there are positive effects for students when they're connected to the internet and using that internet for their own studying purposes and their homework and just getting classroom engagement and increased graduation rates. So we know it's important for these students to have access. And we also know, unfortunately, that there are disparities that exist among rural communities, low-income communities, and marginalized communities, and one of those being Latinx households or Latin communities and Hispanic populations. So when we look at that, some of the 4 new stats that I'm going to give you today, just quickly, when we talk about the high costs of connectivity for public school students, which is the research report that will be coming out next month in October. But, you know, there are high costs for damaged devices. They range from $80 to $800 almost when we talk about completely replacing a device that a student has broken or damaged that was supplied to them by the school that they attend. And not only the cost of the device and to fix that device, but in order to use that device at home after school, we're looking at expensive internet plans. An average in this country is about $90 a month for families, when families report they can only really afford $10 a month on internet. So we're seeing the reliance on it, that it's important for students to use, but there are disparate discriminations against, you know, students that maybe can't afford to have these high costs of devices to fix those devices and for the internet plans at home. So look out for more on that research coming in October, which I'm happy to share. And then just quickly, as before I turn it over to Christine to talk to us today, I'm going to quickly give an update on some federal and state highlights. So we have been told that ACP will not be affected by a government shutdown if that happens. Our understanding is that ACP is operated by the Universal Service Administrative Company, USAC, and since it operates as an independent nonprofit, the budget and the dollars being brought over to the ACP will not be affected by a government shutdown. We are, you know, all crossing our fingers and hoping that that doesn't happen. But in the case that it does, hopefully there will be that stopgate for over the 20 million families that are using the ACP currently. Also wanted to highlight in the BEAD process, we have states kind of turning in those volume 2 plans. We have 5 of them right now: Louisiana, Oregon, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. Next Century Cities is kind of putting together, trying to stay on top of all these moving pieces with on our website is one of our databases for state plans and for comment. So please, when I send you these slides, this is linked to our NCC page, which kind of gives you an update on who is sending in what plans at what time and for different parts of the BEAD process. So it's something that could maybe help you along the way. And without any further ado, I wanted to switch over into the main part of our session today, which is our community highlight, and talking about the great work that Christine Nieves is doing as a Senior Vice President of Development at Esperanza, and their work with Hispanic communities and Latino communities in making sure that there is broadband connection and kind of working on that digital divide, mostly in Northern Philadelphia. She will be talking about the great work they're doing, and at the end, we're going to have a quick question and answer segment. So if you have any questions for Christine or any topics that you hope that she can talk on or expand upon a little bit, please go ahead and throw those in the chat and we'll be happy to include those in our question and answer. So without any more of me talking, I'm definitely going to turn it over to Christine, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, and thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit more about Esperanza and the work that we've been doing through our Hope Digital Skills program. Esperanza means hope. So I'm going to go ahead and try and share this presentation. Bigger here. All right, so just to share a little bit of context, because I know not everybody who is on this call is from Philadelphia. Many of you are coming from different parts of the United States. But Esperanza was established by Reverend Luis Cortes and the Hispanic clergy of Philadelphia in 1986. So we have been around for nearly 4 decades. And it was created to address a lot of the unmet needs. Latinos were often facing some challenges around housing, education, just numerous spaces where the outcomes were not matching the needs, the quality of the programming was not matching the needs of our community. So we were created to kind of make an impact and a difference there. We're based in Hunting Park in North Philadelphia, which is one of the poorest districts within the city. It is heavily Latino and African American. And we have grown over the years to be an organization that has multi-services, about 14 different programs and institutions, including K through 14 schools, an in-person charter school, a cyber charter school, a Hispanic serving institution, Esperanza College of Eastern University. You'll hear me talk about some of these in a little bit in relation to this program. Workforce development, we have a career link, immigration legal services, and many, many more. We have invested over $100 million in transforming this community and making a campus where individuals can access a range of services that are designed specifically for them. And we also do serve as a leading voice for Latinos nationwide. So while we are creating change right here in our neighborhood, we also provide training, technical assistance, and share models with other folks nationally. Today, we serve about 25,000 individuals and families. And I always like to say these are the new homeowners, the new citizens, the new small business owners, the new graduates. So all of those are the outcomes of the work that we are delivering here on the ground. And Esperanza through the years has really become a trusted name. Families and individuals know that this is a place for them, created for them, where they're represented, seen, and those initial barriers of being understood in order to access the kinds of supports and services that you need, those barriers are not quite there in the same way. So here at Esperanza, really everything revolves around barrio is what we call affectionately the neighborhood, right, in Spanish. And so we're working to transform what is often framed in a negative way, in a really positive way. A place that, like many Latino communities throughout the United States, has often been marked by disinvestment, poverty, et cetera, really a place where we are instead providing all of the ingredients, the very things that people take for granted in perhaps more affluent neighborhoods for folks to access opportunity. That includes, right, a thriving economy, good schools, safe places to connect and to learn, bringing all of those quality resources and infusing them here. And so we've done that throughout these nearly 4 decades by building place-based tools and resources. And now we're really thinking about how do we take an opportunity community concept, right, where anybody can access mobility, and think about that within the digital space. How do you create a digital opportunity community? I'm not going to focus too heavily on this, but a lot of every program that we launch here at Esperanza is really driven by a similar framework. So we focus on asset building and creation. We focus on ensuring that programs are led by and reflect the needs of our community. They're also open to serve, individuals of any background who is underserved in our community. But we have a particular strength and emphasis in serving Latinos. We're driven by facilitating these moments of transformation, these aha moments where someone has an experience, an encounter with something like digital skills here, right? A computer, internet access, a place where you may not have seen yourself being a part of before, or thought that, you could not use that before. And that transformative moment kind of opening up the doors to entirely new possibilities. And you'll hear more about that as I talk about some of the folks who are coming into our services. We're focused on equipping that next generation of leadership that can create change in any of these sectors, right, in any of these industries, so that, again, people see themselves represented and are getting quality services and then creating that change. and facilitating generational impact. So throughout the years, we already have teachers who have graduated from our schools who are coming back to teach and to create change here. And it's this sort of engine of hope, right, that we are facilitating. And then we step back and we take the learnings that we have and we use those to inform our next steps. I'm not going to delve too deeply into here. This slide is filled with stats, many of which I'm sure folks who are here at the table are generally familiar with, right? Meaning that we understand that there is an urgent need to ensure that Latinos have broadband access, but particularly not just have the access, actually have the tools and the equipment to be able to put those skills into action. We'll talk about how the inclusion piece of that comes into play. But our neighborhood, as I shared earlier, is heavily low income, predominantly Latino and African American. Within our primary zip code of 19140, at the time that we decided to launch Hope Digital Skills, the initial reports were showing about 59% of residents having home internet. This was pre-pandemic. And about 76% of the households without that access being Latino. So there really being a need there. And then foreign-born Spanish dominant speakers and Latinos are generally less likely to have access to computers, including in countries of origin. About 60% of the workforce clients that we were seeing come through our doors every day, we see about 18,000 of them, and then about 3,000 plus students, didn't have any digital skills. So it was difficult to give a computer out because folks would not necessarily know how to turn it on and how to navigate a web browser. And we know, again, that within the workforce, Latinos play a vital role, but are overrepresented in terms of those who have no or limited digital skills. And as an organization that is committed to making sure that Latinos have access to the tools that we need for success, we wanted to make sure that our community is not left behind when it comes to a changing workforce. So here you'll see one of the signs that we have downstairs here in our offices. Hope Digital Opportunity is for me. These are some of the quotes from some of the clients who have begun to come to our programs. We launched our Hope Digital Skills program in 2022, the beginning of 2022. So we are just shy of 2 years. We, again, have worked with children, youth, and adults to deliver high quality outcomes in education for years. But we know that neighborhood-wide, there still were these disparities, and there were many more people who are not receiving that high touch that you would in going through our programs who could benefit from this type of service and support. And we also knew that as a trusted name in the community, that we would have the ability to help folks to actually begin to put these tools into use, right? Not just to say, here's a benefit, here's a public benefit, here's a number to call. The truth of the matter is that you can have all the resources available that you would like, but if someone does not see it as their own, and if someone does not see it as something that is for them, or really has someone to walk alongside them in that, they will be less likely to use it. So as we go through, I'll talk about how Esperanza really began with an understanding that one-on-one support was going to be key, that kind of that leveraging of our door-to-door teams, as well as the 25,000 kind of folks that are coming through the doors in all of these programs, embedding digital skills throughout was going to be very crucial to how we empower our community overall to see themselves as part of these shifts. So I just shared a little bit about that. So launched in 2022 is what this should say, but with support from Comcast, NBC, Universal, Hispanic Federation. We were one of the grantees for the NTIA Connecting Minorities Communities program because we do have a federally designated Hispanic serving institution, and then some recent support from United Way, our local United Way. But again, we knew that we needed to prioritize that one-on-one support and really this educational campaign. We know that Latinos overall are heavily on cell phones as a form of internet access, but not as much utilizing the internet. And I'll share a little bit about what we learned versus what we kind of thought as we began this program. But we knew that an educational campaign to help folks understand why this was relevant to their day-to-day lives, how this could improve their lives, and to create a sense of urgency was going to be key to our families being able to, and individuals here deciding to actually utilize these skills. So we've embedded digital skills work throughout our college, schools, workforce, immigration, legal services, and more. And that's an ongoing work, right? So as I share that we've been doing this for just under 2 years, it takes a while to shift culture and to build momentum. This is a view of some of the folks who've attended some of our workshops. You'll see a few folks wearing our college shirts, and part of that is to ensure that folks who are accessing workshops both in our workforce sector as well as our college have the ability to take classes in a place where they also can see other possibilities, right? So the ability to enroll in some programs. About 68% of those who we've served thus far are identified as Hispanic Latino. The vast majority of the others are going to be African American. About 90% to 95% initially report internet access. And when we, dig deeper as to cell phone versus broadband, about 87% do have broadband access. So the access points are there in terms of, do I have this in my home? And as we continue to address this for the remainder of the folks, we know that about 62% of those who do not, and 70% if we look at Latinos only, are interested in getting that access. But about 58% do not have a computer. And 13% have one that they may share, probably with a child in the home. We're seeing about 57% are unemployed, 67 earning less than $10,000 a year. Some have an overdue internet bill. So in terms of that initial profile, one of the things that we wanted to share is who we're actually seeing come in the doors has been folks who are 55 and older. Has been the largest share, about 44%. For those individuals, we're seeing a lot of excitement, enthusiasm. Folks are telling us that they have these dreams, things that they thought they could never do. A desire to launch a small business. We've got about 8% of folks who are enrolling in the programs have a small business. A desire for independence, not to be dependent upon a child or, an adult child to help them with things like doctor's appointments. A sense of connectedness, right? And then the other large group of that are 20 and 30-year-olds. So again, we've got individuals all the way across the board, but these have been the two largest kind of areas of demand who are seeking direction. They may not be in our educational programs or workforce programs and are looking for some guidance about how to move forward. And they're very aware that they are going to need some additional skills to move forward. So as of now, we have folks establishing self-identified goals in education, workforce, health, related needs. About 81% of those who set a goal have in fact accomplished that goal. And about 40% are attending more than one workshop or 25% receiving more than one type of service. In terms of linguistic preferences, we are seeing a pretty strong desire either for bilingual workshops or Spanish dominant workshops. So you'll see that spread there below. One of the really neat ways about how we've gone about this program is, again, leading with that, that understanding that this needs to be something that you feel that you own and where you see yourself represented. Esperanza owns a community newspaper, and so it has independent writers and journalists, but actually is designed for a community educational purpose. And so these are some members of our team who have become the faces in the community. This is Alex, Jessica, and Carlos was featured on a previous slide. We've gone from one person doing digital skills programming to about 3 who are all coordinating and presenting this as one program to the community. And again, they've served about 550 individuals since this program just began, and it continues to gain momentum. We're seeing an increased number of phone calls, in addition to featuring scaled editions that allow folks to talk about digital skills, how it can improve your everyday life. We also have radio spots that are running now, radio promotions. We know that the Latino community heavily is on radio. And radio is another kind of way to reach individuals in addition to digital. And then the newspaper goes in print also door to door. So this has been an important way for us to help folks see themselves again represented, and then they come in and they feel like this is a sense of family. There's a place here where someone knows them and can walk alongside them with these services. So we're seeing a lot of momentum. Feel free to go to impactomedia.com to check out some of those articles. In terms of what's next, we have been again, we're going to continue to sustain that momentum. We're looking at ways to address that increased demand in terms of intake and service delivery. We will begin distributing more of the actual computers within our community. But also there are no libraries that are particularly close to us. So when you think about, again, a neighborhood and making sure it has all of what is needed here, there are libraries immediately north and to the east of us, but they're still not within walking distance enough for folks to feel like this is a hub. So we you'll see this is kind of a mid-construction photo. We are opening in October a library that will serve as our Hope Digital Skills Hub. It's housed within our college and will be opened up to 11th and 12th graders throughout the neighborhood, small business owners, and others who are participating in our digital skills programs, so that they feel, again, that they have other places to put this into practice. We have a small business series. We work with 250 small businesses along our economic corridors, many of whom are cash-based, and about half of which do not have websites, brochures, etc. So we are working together with our neighborhood organizing team to deliver some technical assistance packages and a small business series that will ensure that our neighborhood as a whole, that local economy, continues to be vibrant, right, and to respond to demand. And then we'll be delving into additional data insights that over the next year that can continue to refine our programs. So I will stop there and see what questions folks may have.
Thank you so much, Christine. That was incredibly informative. And I really just appreciate the aspect of community work and meeting people where they're at. I think, particularly when you talk about the newspapers and the radio, a lot of the way that people advertise for these programs are online. And we look at, we don't have access to online networks. So how do we get this word out? And so I really appreciate that Esperanza is going directly to the community and working with them where they're at, particularly with the hub you're building and all those things. So a lot of kudos to the work that you're doing, and thank you. I saw Chad came off chat, and I wanted to know if he had a question for Christine. I wanted to open that up to you.
Yeah, I did. Christine, thank you. This is fantastic to see. A lot of communities have the opposite, to where they may have internet to everyone, but they're not trained, and I love the way this is approaching. What I'm curious about, though, is, at least in our community, the incumbent before we existed was Comcast, and they weren't reaching everyone. And so what I'm wondering is, are there people that just aren't reached from an internet perspective, or at least a speed that's decent enough as they learn these new skills, they're actually using the internet? Yeah. And how is Comcast addressed that?
So we are going to be working with Comcast ongoing to look at some of these issues. So we're looking at a few things. One is looking at, we call them internet deserts, but technically, right, folks have internet. So It's about your computers, and it's about the quality, right, of the speed of that internet. So we can have individuals connected, but if it's not serving them well, right, so those are the kinds of things that with our partners, which I know our partners are kind of always willing to listen to, right, that we challenge and we take a look to say, hey, this solution may or may not actually be meeting the needs of our community. And we were always clear, right, that we are focused on educating about the importance of this long term, not any one product. We're starting to look also at, wealthy communities have things like Starbucks, right? So you have a place where you can go in at any point and hook up and get some things done. So our community too deserves those kinds of things. And so while we're building that hub here in the community, we are also looking at some of the policy and legislative pieces and mapping pieces that are needed to ensure that this is embedded throughout the neighborhood as a whole. So I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, no, it does. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And, Christine, thank you for being here too. And then for other folks that haven't met me yet, I'm the new executive director for Next Century Cities, but I'm from Philadelphia. Worked closely with Esperanza in the past, and it's so great to see the great work you're doing. And it's also great to see that you're the digital skills, you're actually part of the digital navigator community as well, which is growing with the work that the city and Comcast is doing with United Way in there too. So yeah, thank you again for sharing. This is really great work. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I love that it's building trust from the inside out, which is so important. So thank you all so much for being here. For those who are viewing us online, thank you so much for attending. I will put in the chat, we have a webinar coming up next month, at the beginning of the month, to introduce Andy Setzman, our new ED. So if you'd like to take part in that webinar, we would love to have you. Next month, we are also doing another segment of Broadband Bites for Lunch focusing on Indigenous communities. So we hope to see you there. And if you would like to join us on a future session, feel free to reach out to me individually. But thank you so much, Christine. We really appreciate all of your information, all of your insights, and just for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.